Hello everyone, welcome to AI Anytime channel. In this video, we are going to build an API service for speech to text. So we are going to use Whisper, which is the SOTA model for transcription, speech to text services. So Whisper is again a model that was created by OpenAI, and they first released that as an open source model, but Whisper is also available through API. If you want to use this as an API, you can also utilize it. Now here in this video, we are going to take the Whisper model and then containerize it. So this API service will be running within a Docker container. So if you don't know what Docker is, it's a container technology that helps you deliver software inside packages. So you don't have to worry about the dependencies, the versions, and the conflict, etc. So it utilizes Docker engine to run the container, and that's what we're going to do here. And it's the open source model that we are going to use, not the API by OpenAI. So if you see here on the GitHub repository of OpenAI, it has something called Whisper, a repository, has 5 different model weights. It starts from tiny to large. Okay, you can see tiny, base, small, medium, and large. We're going to rely on base model here, which is that will run like on a CPU machine with a good enough or good, I'll say a decent speed. Okay, the inference speed. And if you have a better compute power, you can also use a couple of other model weights like large and medium. Now I have a few videos on Whisper already for different applications, and different combination of videos like generative AI and combining Whisper for some of the use cases. Now they also have Whisper Jacks and faster Whisper. So a couple of other libraries and wrappers have been built on top of this that you can also use it if you want. Now let's get started. Our focus here mainly is let me just so our focus mainly here is on the Docker thing. We are going to write some of the instructions within a Docker file. We'll utilize Whisper, set it up, and then run inside a container. And then we'll use that API service through localhost. So let's start building it. So if you see, I'm going to create a file that's called Dockerfile. Now this is how you create a Docker file over here. So let me just do that. I'm just going to create Docker file. And inside this Docker file now, I'm going to write all of the instructions, from top to bottom that will help me create the uh, image, the Docker image, and then we'll run that image inside a container, that will power our API service. So the first thing that we are going to define is a base image, that which programming language or which base image that we are going to take. So I'm going to use Python here, and I'm going to use from Python. That's how you define. So from Python, and then you can define different versions of Python. I'm going to rely on 3.10, the most stable version of Python for all thing AI nowadays. 3.10 and 3. Probably 11 as well. Now 3.n and 10, by the way, and then I'm going to use Slim. You can use different type of images, slim buster, because if you need a minimalistic base image, that these are the options that you can consider. Otherwise your Docker image size will become too big. Okay, now I'm going to use Slim here, from Python 3.10 Slim, and I'm going to create a working directory. So let's call it work dir, and then I'm just going to call it Python and then Docker. That's my work directory. And then I'm going to we're going to create a requirementstxt. So let's do it. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a requirementstxt file. So this is how we write requirementstxt, all the libraries and required dependencies in Python that we install it through requirementstxt. We do pip install -r requirementstxt, or if you also want to do it through Poetry, you can also do it. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is FastAPI. That's what I need. And then I need AIO files and Python multipart, because I'm going to do a post request, and I need this for handling the files. Okay, so Python multipart, and then I need uvcon, which is a web server that helps you fuel your FastAPI APIs or applications, whatever you are building. Now these are the dependencies. FastAPI as a backend framework, one of my favorite framework, and then we have a couple of dependencies that helps you run that API. Now this is what you have to do. we are not defining anything related to Whisper in requirements because we will directly use it in our Docker file through GitHub. So let's do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm saying, okay, copy this requirementstxt into the working directory that I have created on top. So copy and let's do, excuse me. This is what I'm going to do. This is I'm copying it. And now we're going to use couple of run apt command because, you can do it. And Docker supports all the operating system. It's OS agnostic. If you have Docker installed in your machine, it will run. If it's working in my system, if it's running, and if you are sitting somewhere in New York or somewhere, and if you have Docker installed in your machine, it will definitely run. Okay. Now run. I'm gonna do apt get and run apt get. I'm going to first update. That's how we update Ubuntu distro. Sorry, Linux distro. Run apt get update and then couple of and then apt get install, and I'm going to install git and then just do y for now. Okay, so this is why I'm doing it, because I need git, and that's where I will also pull Whisper in this here. So let's do it now. Run pip install. This is right, so I'll let it just use it. Now here we're gonna use run pip install. We're gonna use Whisper here, guys. Okay, so let me just do git and then plus, and let me just go back to the GitHub repository of Whisper. You come here and you just click on code and then you just copy it here. So let's just copy it, go back in the Docker file and just do a control V. Okay, now we are installing the Whisper directly from the source, the GitHub source. So this is what this command does. Okay, now this is done. To use Whisper, we need ffmpeg. Okay, so a command line utility tool for all of the codecs, etc. For videos, audios, manipulations, whatever. Okay, processing. Now this is what I'm gonna do here. So run again. Let's update. So apt get update and then apt get install and then ffmpeg. Here we go. We are done with our installation, guys. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is copy this, so it's fine, and then expose on a port. So FastAPI services usually runs on port 8000 by default. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to say, okay, expose 8000. Now I'm just going to write a command line instruction that this is how you're going to run this API. That's how basically you run, by the way, right? So you can see it says cmd executable. Okay, so I'm just going to write the executable which runs in a terminal. So the first thing is, why it's capital, the first thing is uvcon, which is a first server that will help you run this, and then my app name. So I'm just going to call it an app. Let's call it FastAPI underscore app dot not yeah. So fast API app, and then the name of the app variable. So that's what I'm going to call it app as well. I'll show you what I mean by this. Now the next thing is you're going to define a host, and then inside that it's going to be a local host, so 0000, and then port 8000. We are done with our Docker image, guys. Docker file, excuse me. Now this is how we define a minimal Docker file from top to bottom, where we are using a base image, creating a directory, copying our requirementstxt in the directory, and then defining a few installation steps that will help you install git, requirements, the Whisper from the GitHub source, and then also ffmpeg. And then we are exposing on port 8000, and then just defining our executable command that will help to run the API service that we're going to build. Now we have written our Docker file. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a file called FastAPI underscore what we have defined app.py, and here we're going to write all of our logic for FastAPI code. Now this is what we are doing here. So in here we're going to write our logic for the API for transcription. So end user can basically do a post request with their audio file or files, and they will get the respective transcriptions from this API service that is going to run inside a container. Now so let's write the code here. So I'm going to do is from FastAPI import FastAPI, and then I also need file, I need upload file, and then I also need HTTP exception. So let's call it. This is right. I also need list from typing, because if you are passing multiple audios inside a list, so from typing import list, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to use from FastAPI. We're going to have to some responses. So let's do responses, and I'm going to do import JSON response, for output. So JSON response, where we'll have our output, and then redirect response that will take you to slash docs. If you are hitting it 8000, it should take you to the Swagger UI, right? That's what we're going to use, redirect response, that will help us to redirect it to a slash docs. Now our fast API thing is done. The next thing that we're going to do is import Whisper here. So let's do it. Import Whisper, and I'm going to import torch, that is required to check CUDA and all. If you have a GPU machine, you can use it. And the next is temporary file. So from temp file, import to name temporary. Fantastic. Okay. Now these are the imports. We are done with the imports. Let's check. Okay. App. So this is the app that you can see. This is how we are initiating an app within FastAPI, and this is what we have defined here in this file. If you go to Dockerfile, that's what we're calling FastAPI and app. So if your file name is app, then this will become app. Okay. If you go inside here, if this is app. But here I'm going to do a couple of things. If you are deploying this in production and if you have a GPU support, it's better to do this way. Torch.cuda dot is available. Why it's not showing? It's so bad, GitHub Copilot. Okay, torch cuda dot is available, and then I'm going to have a variable called device. Basically, it's not a variable. It will fine. We should look at this as a constant. Not going to change. So torch dot device. Then why do I need this above line? Let's do not load it from here. So I'm just gonna call it CUDA. If torch.cuda is available, else CPU. That's fantastic. Now we are okay with this thingy, guys. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to load a model. So the model is whisper dot. It should have a class called load model. So whisper dot load model, and the model name is base. So if you go back to the GitHub repository, you will find out that they have a model called base here. You can see the size of this base model, 74 M parameters. Very less, by the way, if you compare to large language model that nowadays we are seeing. But this is right. Base works fine, and then just bind the device. So my device is going to be device. Okay, so we have loaded our model here. Now what I'm going to do next is going to write a couple of endpoints, the decorator that will help you, basically run your API service. So the thing that I'm going to do is app.post. Let's do it. And I'm just going to use here something called whisper. So let's call it whisper. And inside this, I'm going to write an async function. So async defined, and just I'm going to use a handler. And inside this, I'm going to have a list. Now, if you're uploading multiple audios, now if you have multiple files that you want to upload and get the transcriptions, then this is how you should do it. Now, looks good, but let's write the code. GitHub Copilot suggesting something which I believe this is right, but let's see. So this is at least okay. So list upload file, this is fine. I'll just remove this thingy. If not files, if length of files not equals 1, I think this is also correct. Regis HTTP exception, status code 400, and then only one file is not equals 1. If length of files, or let's make it more simpler. If not files. So if not files, then I will say no files were provided or no files were uploaded, something like that. Okay. No files were uploaded. Okay. Now this is going to be an HTTP exception if the end user is not using any files. Okay. I didn't see it. I think this was given here, but let's remove it. Okay, it's fine. Now, if not files raised, this is done. So let's also remove this, and here I'm gonna have a empty list of results. Yeah, this is right. So results and empty list, and then this is also right. So I'm going to say, okay, for file in files with delete true, this is right. So temp dot write file dot read temp dot seek, and then whisper temp name model device, and then this is right. Or let's do one thing. Let's remove this with name temporary file delete true as temp. I'm going to do with open. So with open temp.name as buffer, or let's make it more self-explanatory. Temporary file, buffer and temporary file might be similar. Okay, temporary file. Then I'm gonna write the temp file dot write here. So let's do. Then this will become temporary file dot write, and then just gonna do uh file dot read. This is correct. File dot read, and then let's remove this for now. File dot read temporary file. Just turn on the charger. File dot read, and then you have, let's have one more variable and come out of this with, and with name temporary. Then we have defined a result variable, and inside this result variable I'm gonna use model dot transcribe. This is what I'm gonna use. So it has a function called transcribe. OpenAI gives you that function where you can pass your file name. Okay, the temp. So this is right, which is your temporary name. Now result equals model dot transcribe, and now I'm just going to append this. So results dot append, or let's append in a better way. So results dot append file name, and then let's call it not text, maybe transcript. So transcript, and then this will, we have to parse the output, so let's only get the text out of it. So result and then text. Okay, so this is what Whisper returns. Okay, this is fine. So now we have return JSON response. Let's do a return JSON response, and I'm gonna write content, and content, it should be a key value pair where we're gonna give results, and results equals, so it's a key value pair. We're just going to pass the results. Okay, content, we do have to pass a content type then in Postman, so we'll see that. Okay, now okay, this is right. So this handler is done. Now what I'm going to do next is I also am to write a more decorator, which is app.get, and then also do let's have define a response class, and response class should be redirect response, and then after this async def redirect to docs, redirect to docs, and then return docs. Okay, so we are done with our endpoints, guys. So here, this is the endpoint that we have to worry about, which is /whisper. Okay, now you just have to go ahead and upload. Now how will you create a Docker file? So you can see this is your file, this is your app. Okay, and so what you have to do is, you can see this is how we are running this app. Make sure whatever file name is there, it's in the Docker image. Now I'm going to open my Whisper Docker folder. I'm just going to do a right click, and I will show you, if you are on Windows and if you don't have Docker installed, you can go ahead and install Docker desktop app. It's available through executable exe file. If you are on Linux, it's a one-line command, sudo apt install docker, whatever. Okay, you can just have a look at the documentation. Now if you open this, you can also do everything from the app itself. You can also do it from terminal. You can see I have something already running that's called Whisper API image. So let me just show you how you can first check if there is any image, if you have already any image there in Docker. So what the command is, Docker images. If you do Docker images, you can see I already have an image that is running. That's called Whisper API image. Not running, by the way, that image is there. To find out if there is any container that is actively running, or there's an active container, then for you have to do it Docker ps command. When you do Docker ps, you will find out that there's no container running for me. but I do have an image. Now, if you want to build that image that I already have built, what is the command to build it? So on, if you are on a Linux distro, and if you don't have like if you haven't added Docker in a user group, then you have to use sudo docker build -t and then the image name. So for in my case, if my image is Whisper API img, and then if your Docker file within is in the same directory, then you just have to give a dot. If your Docker file is somewhere else, and if you are trying to build it from somewhere else, then you have to give the relative path of that Docker file. Now here what I'm doing, I'm just saying, okay, Docker build command, so it's going to build the Docker image for me, and then -t, and it's going to have a name called Whisper API img, and then its dot means that there's a Docker file inside it. Now, in that case, because I'm on Windows, I don't need a sudo command, so I'm just going to do docker build -t whisper to Whisper API img, and then dot. Once you hit enter, it will start creating layers after layers. It will start in first, it will pull the base image. If the base image is already not there, if we have worked with Python base image earlier, it will be there. Okay, if you haven't deleted it, okay, the delete command is rm rf. Okay, that's how you delete. Now it will pull the Python image from Docker Hub official repository, and then we'll start building layers. We'll start installing all the dependencies, and then it will give you a Docker image that you can run within a container powered by a Docker engine. That's how it works, guys. Now I already have done it, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run this image that I already have. If you are doing it for the first time, you have to probably wait for 3 to 5 minutes depending on your internet bandwidth. Now what I'm going to do is docker run. Two way of running it. You can either run it in a daemon. So if if you want to run it in a backend process, let it run in a daemon process. And if you want to see it and track it out, you have to do it like define a port. It's going to run on 8000. Just what I'm going to do here, 8000, and then your image name. So my case, Whisper API image, and just I'm going to hit enter, and I expect that it will start running the image within a container for me. What it's currently doing is it's pulling that Whisper base model weights from the GitHub repository or wherever that has been hosted. That's what it's currently doing. Once it is done, it will ask you to open like on a localhost 8000. You can also use it in an application. You can try it out, test it out in a Postman or any other API client. But let's wait for it and see what it does. Once it is built, you can zip this container to your friend's system, or you can deploy it. There are multiple ways of deploying it. You can first push it to Docker Hub if you don't want to push it to Azure Container Registry or Elastic Container Registry on AWS or also GCP, by the way. Now what you see is it says Uvicon running on localhost 8000. So now we have our API running on 8000. We'll just go and try it out. So let me just do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to search for localhost 8000. So let's open it. Now once I open 8000, you can see a beautiful, not beautiful by the way, a Swagger UI. Here you have a couple of endpoints. We are interested in Post, and you can see Whisper, and within Whisper we have our try it out option, where you can click on try it out. Once you click on try it out, it asks you to add string item files, and here on the files you can upload a file. So let's first listen to the file that I'm going to upload. Okay, so this is the file. I don't know if you can listen it yourself. So this is just many of you have asked if LangChain is a lot of issues with it. It's just mine audio. I have just taken shots from my YouTube channel, and it's a 1 minute video. Excuse me, 1 minute video. Then I converted the audio out of it, extracted it, and then I'm just going to use this 1 minute audio and see if I'm able to get the transcription and how much time it takes for 1 minute audio. It should be pretty fast, by the way. Now let's see. Let's upload. Once I upload the langchain.mp3 audio, you can see it starts loading, and it will probably take 15 to 20 seconds to give you the result. And you can see I got my transcription here in a very beautified JSON. Okay, it says results, file name, transcript, blah blah blah, right? Many of you have asked if LangChain is a production ready framework. In my honest opinion, LangChain is yet not production ready. they will be production ready very soon, because if you go to their GitHub repository, you will find a lot of PRs that they have, like something like that, right? So you could see that 1 minute audio, extremely free, running inside a Docker container, makes it fast as well, to be honest. And you can now take this Docker image and you can first push this to a container registry that can be free, paid, whatever, depends where are you going to deploy it. You can deploy it within an app service on Azure, you can deploy it on a container instance, you can deploy it on AWS Fargate, you can deploy it on a GCP, Kubernetes engine as well. Depends wherever you want to deploy it. It depends what you want to do. The entire code will be available on the GitHub repository. You can find on AI Anytime's GitHub repository, and you can now probably deploy this, or you also can use it for different transcription services that you are working on locally in your infrastructure. You can also deploy it on cloud. You do not have to pay for Whisper API if latency is not a problem. You can do some batch processing based use cases like contact center modernization, call center modernization, where transcription is a key, where you have to look at call center calls, listen to it, and derive some insights. Now, this is fine. To application suggestion. This looks nice. We'll figure out that why it probably not work. Maybe I will make this. We'll update it in the video edits, but we'll see it out. So if you have any thoughts or feedback, please do let me know in the comment box. If you have any doubts, please reach out to me through my social media channels. You can find it on my channel About Us and also on the YouTube banner. If you haven't subscribed the channel yet, please do subscribe the channel. Please like the video and share the video and channel with your friends and to peer. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.